Hello, my cozy owlettes. If you're new here, I'm Melanie, aka the Swimming Owl, and I want to welcome you to a very special color along today because today we're coloring a page from my brand new coloring book, Charming Escape. It literally just launched this morning. It's this book right here, the cute square one. You can download the page I'm coloring today for free below, and if you fall in love with it, the full book is available as a printed copy or a digital download in my shop, and the links are in the description. Let's start with a little flip through though, a little peek inside so I can show you the vibe of this book. This book is like stepping into your own whimsical little world where you're going to be wandering through adorable hideaways and charming little lands where you'll find cozy little homes tucked into unexpected places. This book is literally a little escape that invites you to step away from the stresses of everyday life and indulge in something creative and sweet. Today, we're going to be coloring the first page together, and I wanted to gift that to you so you could join me in this color along. So let's get going. It's this page right here. So before I actually begin coloring, I've adopted this little habit of shopping for my own supplies. I like to pick out my colors, especially my markers, before getting started, and I put them into this adorable little basket, and then I put it to the side of my page while I'm coloring, and this helps eliminate any decision fatigue that might happen during the coloring stage. So for today's page, I will be doing my favorite combination of using alcohol markers first and then layering with my Prismacolor colored pencils over the top. I really enjoy this combination. It gives me a lot of flexibility and it's just what makes me happy, but I want to invite you to use the supplies that make you the happiest and make you feel excited to color. So as I put down my first layer of marker on the background here, let's talk a little bit about the vibe of this coloring book. So again, it's called Charming Escape, and the name really does say it all. I illustrated this book during a time when that's what I needed. I needed a gentle escape, a reminder of all things wondrous and joyful, soft, cozy, cute, and I truly hope that that's what this book becomes for you as well. I've been getting a lot of requests for a book that was a little bit simpler in style, a little bit cuter and easier to color, and so it really couldn't have come at a better time when I needed something that felt super joyous to create, and creating these pages was so much fun, and I let my imagination go crazy, and you're definitely going to see that in this book. There are just really playful and whimsical scenes in this coloring book. I really approached this with the mindset of what do I want to color? What is something that would be fun and just allow me to let loose while I colored it and feel very little pressure and literally just good vibes, and that's what this book is. So if you have been feeling like me too, like life has been stuck on hard mode for a little bit too long and you just need a little place to escape to let your brain turn off and reset for a little bit, and escape to a place where there are no rules and everything's made up and it's just good vibes, I think you're really gonna love this book. Our brains were not meant to handle the amount of information that's thrown at us every single day. We need this time to be able to just do something for the sake of joy. So that is why I just love adult coloring so much. And all that to say, yes, I make my books for adults, but your kids will love this too. In fact, my daughter got her book a week early because she is lucky like that. She got one of the first ones that came in, and she has literally already filled 75% of the book. So apparently it's a fun one, guys. It's not just me saying that. After working in this book more and more, I definitely see the attraction to coloring these slightly simplified illustrations. And I say slightly because mine are not extremely bold and simple like some of the more popular books. I made sure to still infuse my own illustration style and some of the whimsical details that I like to include, but just making them a little bit less, so to speak. So it's still in my style, but it is in a slightly simplified way. There's less areas that you need to fill. There's less small spaces that you need to figure out. And so I see the attraction to this. I'm able to complete a coloring page much more quickly with less pressure and thought. It does feel more relaxing. So I totally get that desire for this kind of book. And there's actually some science behind why it feels good to complete these more simple pages in one sitting. When you finish a coloring page, your brain throws a little celebration party just for you. It's because completing something, especially something creative, gives you a dopamine boost, which is your brain's way of saying like, hey, you did a thing and I'm so proud of you. Dopamine is like a warm, sparkly high five from your nervous system. It makes you feel happy, accomplished, and motivated to do more cozy, creative things. And since coloring a more bite-sized and approachable page like this, it gives you that sweet I did it win without feeling overwhelmed. It's like you're completing a little mini adventure every single time, and who doesn't love that? So really, this is just my long and very rambly way of saying I built this whimsical world just for you, a place where you can jump in and fill it with the colors that bring you the most joy, and just let these hard mode worries melt away, even if just for a little while. Because you are the wonder, you are the magic, and this world, it's yours to color into something beautiful, something gentle and dreamy, and exactly what we all need more of right now. Okay, so while I continue bringing this little scene to life with my markers right now, I thought I'd just keep chatting and sharing a few more cozy thoughts with you throughout this color along. However, if you're tired of hearing me talk, you can always mute me and put on your own music or audiobook or show, something that makes you feel happy. You don't have to listen to me ramble the entire time if you don't want to. So on the topic of muting me, if you haven't, what do you like to do or listen to, or what are your cozy creative rituals while you're coloring? What is it that makes it feel like the best experience to you? For me, it's not always the same. Sometimes I'll put on a comfort show. Sometimes I listen to an audiobook. Sometimes I have a YouTube video with somebody chatting in the background or just coloring. Do you like listening to chatty color alongs? Do you like just music and color alongs? I'm so curious to know what your favorite thing is when you're coloring. What do you like to do? Do you also have other little rituals like having a very specific drink or a certain blanket that you sit with? Or I would love all of the details about what it's like for you and what makes it a really good experience. I think we can all use some cozy tips. You know when I love to color most? I would say when it is raining and there's a thunderstorm happening outside. Light a candle, listen to the thunder. That is probably one of my favorite cozy creative times. I just find something so calming about that combination. So if you're new here and you're curious about my coloring process, my style, and how I work, we can chat about that for a little bit too. And you are always welcome to leave questions below if there's something I didn't talk about in the video that you're curious about. Let me know below and I will get back to you. But as for my coloring process, a lot of the time, if I'm planning a color along, I like to plan out my colors to get rid of all of that stress you might feel over a color palette. I generally will do a little mock-up on my iPad in the app Procreate, and I'll plan out my color palette that way. This one, I actually had the color palette already planned out because I colored this in digitally to put on my actual back cover of the coloring book. So I followed that color palette mostly when doing this color along. So that's how I already had these colors mapped out. But if you'd like to hear my thought process on how I went about choosing it in the first place, we can chat about that for a second. So when planning my color palette for my coloring pages, I almost always go for a very vibrant and colorful option because that is what makes me the happiest, is just lots of color. And when I know that I'm going to go with marker first, I start by choosing 2 marker colors per element. So 2 marker colors for the hills and 2 marker colors for the mountain, like, if that makes sense. I will choose a lighter color and then a slightly darker color. And I put the lighter color down first and then layer in a darker color. So, and I also kind of decide, so for instance, on the hills, I knew I wanted a warmer green, meaning those greens were going to lean more towards a yellow. And for my pine trees, I wanted a darker, cooler color, so my green would lean more towards a blue. And pause on that topic really quick to discuss what I'm doing right now. I just grabbed my colorless blender marker and I'm using it to soften the edge of this pink in the cloud so that it fades out a little bit better into the brightest white of the paper. I have been loving using this colorless blender for all kinds of little tips and tricks, and this worked really well. So back to talking about choosing a color palette. If you don't have an iPad to be able to plan out your color palette, I totally understand that that's a very bougie way of doing things. Just use a piece of scrap paper and test your markers or your supplies out on a piece of paper to the side before putting it down and decide if you like it right there. You don't have to have any fancy method of testing your colors. You can literally use a piece of scrap paper or a piece of scrap mail, junk mail from your the trash bin. So that would be what I would recommend to do. If you're just feeling a little nervous about putting color down, test it out first. Here comes that colorless blender again, and I'm going to use it to blend the water a little bit more and make it feel a little more fluid. Again, just loving that colorless blender. It is like a magical tool. However, if you are using alcohol markers and utilizing the colorless blender, make sure you have scrap paper or cardstock, something behind your page while you're working, especially if you use this colorless blender, because it will push the pigment to the back of the paper and into whatever is beneath it, because it's kind of, as it's erasing or blending things away, it is pushing that alcohol marker to the back because it has to go somewhere, and so that's where it's going. So just make sure you have something behind your page, especially if you're not working like I am right here. I had a printed out page instead of inside the actual book. Fun fact, I hadn't actually received my copy yet when I made this color along, so I printed this out and was coloring just on a sheet of paper. But if you're inside your actual book, definitely protect your other pages by putting either a few sheets of paper or a piece of cardstock or something in between your pages. If you buy a printed book from me through either my website or my Etsy shop, I always send a piece of backing board with your books so that you can place that between your pages. But if you don't buy from me, just find something like some scrap paper to tuck in there. So a little tip for other ways to use that colorless blender while I'm thinking of it. I played around with a few things not too long ago, and one was using the colorless blender to create clouds and using it to create stars and using it to create kind of a bokeh light effect or bubbles even. So if you'd ever like to see me show you that in like a little tips and tricks or a technique video, let me know below. I could definitely create a quick little video on that if you'd like to see that. So if you don't know this about me, I am a mixed media artist, meaning I like to mix my materials. I like changing it up. I don't like sticking to just one thing. I don't like being boxed in. So that's why I really love combining materials in my coloring pages as well, and starting with marker and then moving on to colored pencil and white ink and that kind of thing. I am a bit of an impatient artist. I like things to move quickly, and marker is the solution to that. I love being able to block in large amounts of color very quickly, and I love that with these brush tip markers it also feels like painting. So there's just something about all of those combined things that make this super enjoyable for me. However, if you do not enjoy markers, don't feel pressured to do the same kind of coloring that I'm doing. Do it in a way that makes you feel calm and happy. This just happens to be a process that I have found that works super duper well for me. I know one of the reasons some people struggle with liking marker is because they don't like the streaking that happens, and they don't like that they can't blend them perfectly. But there are two reasons that doesn't bother me. And the first is that I love a lot of texture in my work, and so the streaking kind of gives some really good texture sometimes. The second reason that I don't mind it is that I know I'm coming back in with colored pencil, and so if there are areas that are bothering me, I use my colored pencils to smooth things out or blend it away or cover it with more texture and color. So I know that I have ways of problem solving if the streaking didn't work to my advantage. And you know what? Honestly, let me have you borrow my mindset for a moment. That kind of problem solving that I was just talking about has become one of my favorite parts about making art. I was raised to be a figure it out kind of person, and that mindset has really carried over into my creative process. It helps keep me going through those weird, messy, sticky in-between stages when things don't look quite right yet, and it's so tempting to scrap it all. But I've learned that if I stay curious instead of critical, that's usually when the magic can start to happen. And truly, some of my favorite pieces only exist because I didn't give up on them too soon. All right, I'm gonna let the markers do the talking for just a couple more minutes here as I finish in some of these last little sections with my markers. And then I'm gonna come back to you and I'll chat your ears off a little more while we do some of the colored pencil details. But until then, just enjoy a little bit of soft music and some happy coloring vibes. All right, the markers are done and it's time to go shopping for my supplies again. Now I am moving on to my colored pencils. And what I like to do here is choose some lighter and darker versions of the colors that I already used. So I'm just going through and kind of picking out some options that look pretty close to my marker colors, but in a lighter and darker form, while also selecting some of my absolute favorite colors that I use in most of my work because they make me so happy. And many of you have probably already heard me talk about those colors, but they include mulberry, which is a really beautiful purpley shadow color that I love, dahlia purple, process red, the fluorescent hot pink pencil. I use the white colored pencil quite a bit, which I'm using right now to put a glow around the stars. So those are some of my favorites. And you've also likely already heard me say that when I create my shadows or the dark areas in my coloring page, I almost always use a purple or a blue instead of black. I think black makes things look a little bit more flat or dull. And so instead I use something with some color and some vibrancy to it, like purple. That's my favorite way to shade things. So while I bounce around and put in my finishing colored pencil details to really bring this page to life and make it feel a little more alive, I thought it could be kind of interesting or fun to chat about my illustration process and my creation process for my coloring books, because I do get a lot of questions about this, about how I create the books, how I make the artwork, and maybe it might be cool for you to hear how I do that. So every single coloring book starts with me choosing a theme that makes me feel super excited. Something that I know I can create at least 30 illustrations around without it turning into a struggle fest. Believe me, there have been plenty of themes that I've had to let go of, at least for now, because it became too difficult to create artwork around. And when it begins to feel like that, it's time to move on, because that's not a fun place to create from, and I know that that will translate over into the artwork. So once I know I've got a theme that I can actually create plenty of artwork around, I gather inspiration from either my own life and photos I've taken, or a healthy scroll through Pinterest and places like Unsplash and whatnot. So I just start gathering lots of inspiration. So after I've gathered all of that inspiration, I start to make a more detailed list of scenes that I want to bring to life. And then once I have that list, then the actual drawing begins. And I always work in stages. I create really rough sketches, which probably are only legible to me. Then I make a really refined sketch that allows me to then make final line art. And all of this is done by hand on my iPad using the app Procreate. And yes, I am the one doing all of the drawing. There's a little misconception that the computer just draws everything for me, but I promise you it is all hand drawn by myself. And you can see in a lot of my short form videos how that all works. And I also created a video not too long ago that's available on my channel that shows you my illustration process. As I'm drawing and planning these pages, I'm constantly thinking about you. Yeah, you. And what would be fun for you to color. I try to ask myself questions like, what should I leave more open-ended so you can sprinkle in more of your own creativity, or what area should have a little more detail. And this part has definitely evolved with each new book that I've made, especially now that I've been coloring more of my own pages as well. It's really become a collaborative project in my eyes. Like, I'm starting the artwork, then I get to watch it come to life in 100 magical different directions through your hands and other colorists' hands. And that is the honestly the best part. And then the second best part is the inking stage where I make that final line art, because I love zoning out and doing those final clean lines once all of the creative decisions have been made, and I can just go on like cozy autopilot and put on any sort of media that I want to consume and just create the lines. Once all of the line art has been completed for however many pages I've planned for the book, I will then choose a few of my absolute favorites and color them in, so that way I can use them as the cover design and marketing images, and then I can start piecing together the final book. Because I really do every part of the process myself, from sketch to layout and design to publishing. It is a lot of work, but it's just the most rewarding thing ever. This idea of creating something from nothing. I am obsessed with the magic of creating something from nothing. It is so fun and so cool to watch these illustrations on my iPad be put into a physical book that I can then send out into the world to you so that you can finish the artwork. It's so magical. All right, here is a fun little technique for you to try out. If you'd like to experiment with adding more texture and energy to your coloring pages, I am doing these very scribbly, loopy lines on my pine trees, and I loved how that turned out. I'm using kind of like a minty green color on top, and that layered really nicely over the dark. And then into the kind of bushy or grassy or hilly areas, I'm also making some very scribbly green circular motions to look more leafy, like more of a leafy texture. So I encourage you to play around with adding in some fun texture. If you don't like things to look kind of flat or just one color, this is a very fun way to add a lot of energy and movement into your coloring page. So as I sprinkle in these final colors and fun details, and then finally my white ink details, I just want to say a big warm thank you for spending time with me today. It means so much to me to have you here, and that's whether you're coloring along or just keeping me company while you sip your tea or work on your own creative projects. If you'd like to keep coloring with me and you want to see more color alongs in this book, you can grab Charming Escape, this brand new coloring book, in a few different ways. So you can either get a printed and signed copy or a full digital download version directly from my website, which is linked below. Or if you prefer to shop through Etsy, you can get the same, both the printed and signed copy or a digital version. Lastly, if you're just looking for the quickest available printed option, you can get that physical copy as well on Amazon. And then don't forget that you get this page that we're coloring right now. You can download it for free today directly from my website, and this is a thank you from me to you. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What kind of theme should I explore for my next coloring book? Even though I'm always dreaming up these fun little worlds, I still want to know what you would be excited to color. Hearing your thoughts and feedback just really helps shape the books that I create next, and I want this to always feel like we're building something together. So if there's a vibe or a feeling or a theme you'd love to see in a future book, definitely tell me down in the comments. I really do read every single one. I'm still a tiny channel and can do that. And I truly treasure this community of cozy owlettes that we are growing here. And it's okay if you're feeling a little shy, no pressure. Even just dropping your favorite emoji or just saying hi helps so much, and it lets me know you're here and enjoying the art and magic with me. All right, my cozy little owls. Thank you again for being here and for supporting my art and for coloring alongside me. You are truly the magic behind these pages, and I'm so grateful you're a part of this whimsical little world that I am building. So, until next time, happy coloring.